What would it take for you to be fortunate enough to have rich people problems? So if, whether you know it or not, if you are somebody who has experienced rich people problems, congratulations. If you're somebody who cannot even believe that rich people have problems, may you be fortunate to find out what rich people problems are. So when I say rich people problems, what I mean is when you start having a lot of money, there are many government agencies, taxation boards, family members, friends, thieves, and bandits who want the money from you. And that is what I mean by rich people problems. I have seen so many people limit the amount of money that they're willing to have and to generate based on not wanting to have to pay taxes or actually give it to their friends or their family to support their family. I have been this person. I have definitely, not really with taxes, that one's not been my thing. The thing is, like, I didn't want to have to support my mom or, you know, give money to my asshole brother or, you know, not that I had to, but I knew that once I had money that they would ask. And there was always sort of this like background obligation that was never spoken that like, that I had to take care of them or somebody had to take care of them. So, you know, has that been in your world? Have you had that thing where it's like, I don't want to have so much money that then like either it gets taken away from me by war or, you know, how many lifetimes do you remember losing all your money? And it's like, or having to take care of your family or having people just ask of you in general. So this is what a rich person problem is, having others ask of them. And the reason I have to bring it up is because it sort of is so insidious and lies in the psychology of so many of us. And it is this massive stopping place for where we're willing to have and choose more. So the way that I've been able to deal with that is by constantly coming back to the question of, okay, so if I was an infinite being, would money be a problem? You know, it's like somewhere in the last 3 or 4 years, I chose to take on my mother financially, essentially, which is, you know, my mom and dad got a divorce 15 years ago. It was a while ago. And he paid her alimony way longer than he had to for a really long time. He took care of her. My father is the most generous person. And at one point, he started sort of preparing me for taking her on. And I remember when he came to me and he was like, do you think you could take on like paying for your mom? And I was like, and my God, the journey I went on with that, I was like, why do I have to? First of all, I was angry with her. Like, why is she at this age and hasn't saved her money? She's like a financial mess. And why the fuck is this my responsibility? And did it. And like, I had so much charge. And he didn't push it. And it's really something I had to look at for myself. And I was like, okay, so if I don't do this, if I don't take her on financially, if I don't give her money every month, if I don't support her, how am I going to feel about that? Like, how am I personally going to feel about that? And it was like horrible. And I was like, if I do give her money monthly and take care of her, how am I going to feel about that? Resentment, 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 resentment. And I went, okay, wait a second. So why am I resentful that I have to give her money? There was like no logic there. It was just a reason. All the resentment was all this like reasoning and logic for why I shouldn't have to give, or why she was wrong financially, or there's all this stuff that like just felt horrible in my own world. And finally I went, okay, so if I stopped making money the problem, what would I do? If money wasn't the issue, I've had so much money that paying her monthly was like nothing for me, what would I choose? And I was like, of course I would give her money monthly. Of course I would do that. And so I sort of like bit the bullet, shaking and quaking in my boots the whole time, because it was really expanding my financial zone. This was a different choice for me. And I chose to do it. And I think I've been doing it for a few years now. And after the initial pain, it just got so easy to just send her that money. And then my entire psychological relationship and stance toward my mother improved. It was like, before the money, I had all this, like, I was always trying to take care of her and help her, but she like never would take the help and was always creating fights, and like, it was not a good relationship. And then after I started giving her money, it was sort of like it did completely absolve me of any other kind of responsibility for her. And she actually got really, really nice to me. And I was like, wow. And my dad's like, yeah, because people are nice to people they want to get money from. And that was a stance, a rich person problem that I did not want to acknowledge existed. That number one, people want money from you. And number two, they're nice to you because of your money. I have this like weird ethical moral thing where like, where I think that when people are like change their behavior towards others based on money, it's like really unethical and like something I didn't want to acknowledge existed. And so there's this whole thing that goes into having money, rich people problems, as I like to call them. And I just gave you the example of my mom. I've since now taken on also financially my birth father, and my brothers are too scared of me to ask, which they fucking should be. But it's like, I've spent years and years and years and a lot of money and made a lot of big choices to learn how to manage my money. Once you start having money, well, the first time I got my $1 million tax bill, I was like, it was a beyond for me. It was something that I couldn't even like fathom. And I went into huge reaction, and people just kept on being like, is this real? Like, is this how this works? And most everybody that I talked to was like, totally had submitted to that. That's the way you pay taxes. And I'm not saying that you don't pay taxes. I'm saying one of the privileges of being a rich person is that you can hire experts who actually know all of the possibilities for legally minimizing tax. That's like a whole thing. It's a whole industry, So I've spent years learning about that and paying smart people a lot of money to teach me, and it continues to grow, and I'm just still even a baby in that. But this is a rich person problem, having to find out how to basically preserve your money and not pay it to the taxation boards, depending on what country you're in. Get it stolen from bandits, or, have, to support your family. However, I do support my family, and I support a lot of people. And the more willing I have been to be generous, the more money I've had come to me. So there's a whole other video on generosity of spirit. There's a whole other video on taxes and money management. But this is really I want to touch on this nerve of, do you reduce or limit what you're willing to have, the amount of money you're willing to generate, the source of money that you're willing to be, because you don't want to have to take care of others, or because you don't want to have to pay taxes? And if that is where you're functioning from, is that actually a long-term generative stance? If you were an infinite being, would there be anything that you couldn't handle, or any amount of money that was too much or too small for you?